A blessed day, fellow teachers, researchers, employees, and personnel of DepEd Cavite Province. I am Mrs. Jonalyn Iperido, Master Teacher 2 from Menda Central School, and I'm here to discuss with you a very timely topic in writing and action research focusing on research instruments and consent forms. For today's session, our terminal objective is at the end of the session, the participants shall be able to know the different research instrument and consent forms used in conducting research. And for us to achieve this objective, we have to focus on the following enabling objectives. We have to define what is a research instrument. We have to identify the criteria used in choosing a perfect research instrument. We have to give the most commonly used research instrument in conducting a research study. We have also to give the guidelines for ethical research in the social sciences. We have also to identify the consent forms used in conducting research as to assent for minors, parental consent, and informed consent. And also we have to discuss about the Data Privacy Act of 2012 and its implication in research. To begin our session, let us first define what a research instrument is. We all know that an instrument is a tool used to assist you in doing a certain task. For example, there is a teacher. Now, he is going to use an instrument, say, Idea Exemplar. With the use of Idea Exemplar, he is going to deliver his lesson well to his pupils as he is guided of the learning tasks to be done by the pupils in the mastery of the lesson for the week's period. Similarly, if you look at a researcher is doing a research and there are a lot of tools that will help him to collect data, to collect information because research involves gathering of information, analyzing that information, and then coming to a conclusion. So in order to collect information, he might use a lot of tools, and these are known as research instruments. Research instruments are tools used by the researcher to collect and analyze the data on a topic of interest from research subjects. It can be a test, survey, scales, questionnaires, or even checklist. There are certain criteria in choosing a perfect research tool. For example, there is a researcher who wants to research on 30 people. Now, if he wants to gather information from these 30 people, he might use a research tool which is called interview. Whereas, if he wants to conduct a research involving a big crowd, say 10,000 people, then it's going to take him a lifetime interviewing those 10,000 people. So in this case, he will use questionnaire. He is going to distribute the questionnaire to them, and the participants will fill the information needed in the questionnaire, and the researcher will collect the data. So selecting the perfect research tool is going to depend upon the nature of the research and the number of participants involved and a lot of many other criteria. This time, let's now proceed with my topic. I'm now going to discuss with you the most commonly used research instrument in order to carry out a research study. Now, let's first look on the number one research instrument, which is interview. Interviews have long been used in research as a way of obtaining detailed information about a particular topic or subject. There are a lot of interviews that we must have read or watched on television. Also, if you look at the magazine or newspaper, you find that all of these magazines have certain interviews in each of their edition. Similarly, if you look at television, there are a lot of shows which are running which are based on interview. Example of interview on TVs, we have Tonight with Boy Abunda, Gandang Gabi Vice, and Kapuso Mo Jessica Soho. These are very popular shows interviewing top celebrities, political leaders, prominent persons, and artists. So interview is an oral conversation in which the interviewer is going to ask questions, and the person who is who is being interviewed will give us information based on the question, and it is a research tool by which you can gather information about a person. Now, there can be two types of interview. One is a structured interview and the other one is unstructured interview. What is a structured interview? A structured interview is when you prepare the question in advance, meaning the questions are predetermined. Suppose one day I get to interview a teen idol or a well-known political leader. In that case, I can list, for example, 10 questions that I'm going to ask, and then the person being interviewed will respond back. On the other hand, if I'm going to use unstructured interview, then my next question will depend upon the interviewer's response. It is because unstructured interview is a very flexible approach. Areas of interest are established by the researcher, but the discussion of issues is guided by the interviewee. This allows some control over the interview for both the interviewer and interviewee. For example, if the artist said that I love watching movies in my free time, I might ask him a question, can you please tell me some of the best movies which you've seen or some of your favorite movies, and why did you consider them as your favorites? Now, what I am doing, I have not written any question. Whatever he is saying, on the basis of that, I will make up new questions. So, these are two common kinds of interview which can be used by the researcher. So, when you look at the interview as research tool, you might find it very good when it comes to collecting detailed information about the person, but on the other hand, if you look at the interview in the point of view of time, then it is extremely time-consuming and expensive at the same time. Why? Because if I want to conduct a research on 10,000 participants, it is going to take me 10 or more years to interview each and every person, but if my research is on particular group and I'm only targeting a few people in my research, then in that case, interview is going to be the best research instrument for you to use. The second kind of research instrument is the questionnaire. Now, I'm pretty sure that you have already filled an example of this questionnaire. If you're going to a restaurant, you will be given a feedback form or customer feedback with a set of questions that you need to answer relevant to the experiences that you had in the restaurant as to food services, ambience, and accommodation. So questionnaires are a series of written questions given to the participant to collect data or information. Another example of this is the survey form. So a very good example of this is this evaluation form or the survey form given to the participants at the end of the webinar, wherein the participants will answer some questions relevant to the webinar that they have attended to. Say, for example, what important learning did you get after attending to this webinar? Or how can the session be improved? Questionnaires can be of two types. One is open-ended question and one is close-ended question. What is close-ended question? A close-ended question is where you either have a yes or no response or multiple choice answer questions that is also a close-ended questions. For example, if I ask, do you like milk tea? You can either answer yes or no. On the other hand, if I ask you an open-ended question, say, can you describe the biggest achievement in your life? In this case, you're going to give me a detailed answer based on thoughtful response. That is called an open-ended question wherein it allows for the recording of any response to a question provided by the respondent. The answer to open-ended questions are in no way predetermined, and this can make the analysis difficult. What is the best thing about questionnaire? The best thing about this research instrument is that it is used in surveys Unlike interview, it is really time-consuming and it is not suitable when research happens to involve large number of participants. But if you want to gather information involving large participants, then the best way to gather information is by using questionnaire as a research instrument. The only demerit about the use of questionnaire is that you are not physically present. So, personalized touch is missing. If I'm using interview, in that case, I can make a question for the person again and I can look at the body movements, posture, gesture, and facial expressions. And this way, I can figure out a lot more things about the person through careful observation. Unlike in using questionnaire, there is no physical contact between the researcher and the participants, which we can say very useful in this time of pandemic, now that face-to-face contact is not allowed. But still, questionnaire can give you a lot of information that you need in your research, and it is more suitable form of research tool. The next kind of research tool is the standardized test. So what is a standardized test? The standardized test is when the data is collected from the participants and that data is going to be interpreted and scored in a consistent or standard manner. It is also known as the assessment test. The best thing about standardized tests is the score of the participants is compared to the group and then we see how well the participants perform. A very common type of standardized test is achievement test which happen in schools. What happens when the tests are taken? Every student is going to be scored in the same vein. There is a standard answer and the basis of that standard answer is that your answer is judged and then a score is calculated. The score is compared to the scores of other students and rank is being given on how well a pupil performed. Last but not the least, we have the rating scale as research instrument. So what is a rating scale? Rating scale is the common method of data collection used to gather information or comparative information about a specific research subject. So I'm going to give you an example and I'm pretty sure that you can relate with the example very well. You must have purchased any product form in a common online site, say Lazada or Shopee. After the product is delivered at your home, they ask you to rate your experience and then in your email, you will be given rating scale wherein you will write a review on the product. Example, in terms of product quality, shipping, and handling. 5 stars means you are delightful with the product. 4 stars satisfactory, 3 stars neutral, 2 stars poor, and 1 star very poor. Another is for the seller services. If you click there the smiling face, it means you look for their service as positive. Neutral face, of course, you are neutral with their services, and sad face means that their service with you has negative impact. With this, we can say that rating scale is a close-ended survey question to represent respondent feedback in a comparative form for specific or particular features, products, and services. So that is all about the use of rating scale as another type of research instrument where researcher can gather information and intend to associate a qualitative measure with the various aspects of a product or feature. Another equally important topic that I need to discuss with you is the use of consent forms, which is also part of ethics in research. So, why is consent important? According to the principles of research scientists and social and scientific system, it is not a matter of importance. It is a requirement to any ethical research concerning human subjects. So the bottom line here is whenever you are planning any type of research that involves human subject, you need their consent to do so. What are the guidelines that we need to consider for ethical research in the social sciences as to integrity, confidentiality, privacy and anonymity, beneficence, social justice, cultural and gender sensitivity, protection of vulnerable groups, sectors, and populations. So let us discuss each guideline one by one. First is integrity. Integrity to research is a commitment to accuracy, intellectual honesty, and truthfulness in the conduct and reporting of studies. Integrity begins with the assurance that a study is carried out by individuals who, because of their education, training, or experience, possess the qualifications to carry out, analyze, and disseminate research findings. It involves scholarly rigor or being exact and also carefulness in obtaining, recording, and analyzing data and in publishing results. Here, we need to avoid to draw conclusions based on faulty or insufficient evidence that will unduly favor the sector, the research sponsor, or the researcher. There should be transparency in acknowledging the source of research funding and all efforts taken to ensure that conflicts of interest are avoided. You need to be mindful also of potential misuses of research findings. All efforts to avoid unfair reporting, distortion of results, and unfavorable impacts are need to be put into place. Researchers possess personal integrity if they carefully and truthfully acknowledge all sources of information, whether these are obtained from the library, observations in a natural world, or from systematic interaction with research participants. There should be truthfulness extend to the research report, and it must leave a clear trail of evidence that will enable future students or scholars to check its validity, to replicate or to develop new areas of study. Moreover, the authorship of published work must include those who contributed to the writing of the publication. We also need to acknowledge the important contributions of non-researchers in writing the reports. For example, the insights offered by colleagues, research participants, policymakers, practitioners, and other stakeholders. Second, confidentiality, privacy, and anonymity. The principle of confidentiality is the protective handling of information revealed in a relationship of trust and with the expectation that it will not be divulged to anyone without permission. The information will help them to decide about the sufficiency of the protection and the acceptability of the possible release of private information to the interested parties. As a researcher, you are expected to protect the rights of the participants as to confidentiality, privacy, and anonymity. Participants' identity should not be revealed unless permission or such data are available from public documents. You must make explicit to the participants how the data will be collected, how the information they provide will be safeguarded, and who will or may use these data examples. So we have the research team, interested individuals or organizations. You must respect the right of the participants to privacy or to be free from unwanted observation, disturbance, and interference, and to control access to their personal and private information. As much as possible, participants are assured of anonymity or the quality of being unknown to most people or being anonymous, and unless warranted, their identities are concealed in the research reports and public presentations of research output. Third, beneficence or do good, do no harm. The research should ensure that a study will enhance the well-being and improve the situation of the population under study rather than undermine or endanger them in any way. They must be protected from possible harm, including physical, medical, psychological, and social damage such as distress, embarrassment, social stigma, and financial, criminal, or civil liability. Fourth, we have social justice. It refers to the allocation of burdens and benefits to the research participants and their communities. Issues of justice arise most strongly around questions about the selection of the participants, which may exclude certain sectors due to inequality and discrimination. Here, you must recognize the rights of the individuals and the communities to participate in producing knowledge and have access to information relevant to their well-being and that of their communities. Fifth, we have cultural and gender sensitivity. You should certify that the study does not exacerbate inequalities as to gender, ethnic class, and other forms of inequities. Care must be taken to use gender-sensitive and culture-sensitive language in interviews and questionnaires. You should consciously remove biases or prejudices and other forms of discrimination in the choice of the participants, the research sites, and in the interpretation of collected data. Cultural and gender sensitivity must always be taken into account in the conduct of the study by respecting the cultural norms, traditions, as well as their language, literature, and cultural knowledge. Six is the protection of vulnerable groups, sectors, and populations. This includes participants who are relatively incapable of deciding for themselves due to physical and mental disabilities, young or old age, poverty, having been victims of crimes, disaster, and other difficult circumstances. Examples of vulnerable populations include children and minors, pregnant women, older persons, or persons with little or no education, persons with disabilities, persons with health issues, survivors of disasters, violence, and abuse, jail and prison inmates, and persons whose identities invite social stigma, among others. Such participants must receive extra protection as their marginalized status restricts their autonomy and make them vulnerable to inducement and coercion. You shall take more care to uphold their rights to privacy and confidentiality and their autonomous right to decide to participate in the study. What about informed consent? Informed consent is an agreement among the author, co-author, and the participants who is 18 years old or above to voluntarily participate after stating the key information about the study. Informed consent is one of the founding principles of research ethics. Its intent is that human participants can enter research freely or voluntarily with full information about what it means for them to take part and that they give consent before they enter the research. Consent should be obtained before the participants enter the research prospectively. The minimum requirements for consent to be informed are that the participant understand what the research is and what they are consenting to. What are the parts of informed consent? It contains the following. We have the project title or the title of your research study, the researchers or the proponents of the study, the sponsor or the person or organization that support the expenses in the conduct of your research study, the overview of the study. Here you have to indicate the purpose or methods of research and the risks and inconveniences in conducting the study. We also need to include the following important statements in the informed consent. We have the nature and extent of involvement of the research participants, the voluntariness of information, freedom from coercion and inducement, freedom to withdraw at any point in the research, and the possible benefits of the participants, the opportunities of the participants to ask questions and express concerns, the provisions for cases where legal representative is needed, especially for minors and persons with disabilities, the compensation or token and any financial considerations, if any, reimbursement of travel or loss of income and meal expenses, provision of confidentiality, and of course, provision for privacy and anonymity of participants during and after the data gathering stages. These include management of audio and video recording, photos, transcripts, and other data from the participants. Informed consent must also have the contact person who is knowledgeable about the research and the rights of the participants. And most importantly, the consent statement that the participant is willing to participate in the study and that the participant fully understood what this undertaking will entail and that the researcher has explained the purpose and objectives in conducting the research, as well as the objectives and the methods in getting the data. Also, the extent of the participation of the participant and the benefits that the participant will derive from his or her involvement in the study. This must typically include an actual signature of the prospective participant. Here is an example of informed consent from Mame and Joy Romanes, which I got from the Division Memorandum 236 Revised Research Management Guidelines of 2019. For the informed consent, similar to assent for minors and parental consent, key information about the research is indicated. And of course, the confirmation of the participant who is 18 years old or above to voluntarily participate in the study is provided that all the information will be obtained from his or her participation will remain confidential or anonymous. And this is of course in accordance with the Data Privacy Act of 2012, also known as Republic Act 10173. What is assent for minors? Assent for minors is an affirmative agreement of a minor that is a respondent under 18 years old to participate in the study. With this, we also need the what we call parental consent or the agreement among the author, co-author, and the parent or guardian of the participant who is below 18 years old to voluntarily allow the minor to participate in the research after stating the key information about the study. Both assent for minors and consent of the parent must be obtained before you can conduct your research. If there are signs of refusal on the part of the minor and the parents already had his consent, still, we have to respect the minor's decision. The teacher should withdraw the child to the participant list. Here is a sample of assent for minors which I will be using in conducting my research study for the school year 2020-2021. In the assent for minors, you will write the key information about the study as to title, name of the proponent, organization, and contact number. What is your research about, and the reason why will you conduct your research. Also, it is written here that the parent or guardian of the minor has the knowledge about the research to be conducted, and the confidentiality of the information that will be obtained from the research is also stated. And that is in accordance with the Data Privacy Act of 2012, and of course, the confirmation of the minor to voluntarily participate on the said research study is also given. We also have here sample of parental consent. Similarly, it also contains the key information about the study and of course the consent of the parent or the guardian to voluntarily allow the minor to participate in the research study. Confidentiality of the information is also obtained from the parents, and it is also stated in accordance with the Data Privacy Act of 2012. In our assent for minors, parental consent, and informed consent, it is stated there the confidentiality of information obtained from the minors as well as the participants who is 18 years old or above and the parents, which are in accordance to the Data Privacy Act of 2012. What is the Data Privacy Act of 2012? This is Republic Act number 10173, an act protecting individual personal information in information and communication systems in the government and the private sector, creating for this purpose a National Privacy Commission and for other purposes. For the declaration of policy, it is the policy of the state to protect the fundamental human right of privacy of communication while ensuring free flow of information to promote innovation and growth. The state recognizes the vital role of information and communication technology in nation building and its inherent obligation to ensure that personal information in information and communication systems in the government and in the private sector are secured and protected. For the research implications, so the bottom line here is that we must observe research integrity and transparency, and we have to make sure to protect the right of our participants or research subject from various violations of personal privacy, and we need to be transparent on the information that may impact our participant safety. For the references we have, before I end my lecture, I want you to keep in mind this valuable quote. Research is undertaken to discover the novelties of life, to make life good, and to make the good better. That's all for today. I hope you learned something from my lecture. Happy learning, everyone, and thank you very much for listening.